Hello everyone, it's Annette Green here. It is week 49 of 2025. Wow, we are getting toward the end here. And every week I do a craft or craft related video. And as you can see here this week, I am making this fun little retro style project. Just kind of a fun hanging for the holidays. And these are little light strings made of felt and some beads are added. And we're gonna go through how to make these right now. So let's get started. I had this idea when we were up in Ohio visiting our daughter Jamie for Thanksgiving. And I was thinking about that long ride home back to South Carolina. And I thought, I've got to go to the craft store and get a little project that I can work on. So this is what I got. And these are the supplies that you'll need. I got some embroidery floss. And I used 842, which is a very neutral kind of tan. And that's for doing all those cute little blanket stitches around everything. You would need some felt. Now, if you didn't want to use felt and you want to use fabric, that would be a lovely idea, like vintage, I don't know, Christmas fabric. The only thing I would say with the fabric is that you would want to like do a fusible kind of fleece layer to the back of your fabric to give it a little more body like felt has. So I just grabbed all these cute little colors and bought one sheet of each. And then in the car, I drew out a little template. This was the packaging from maybe the needles that I bought. No, the needle threader, which I'm going to show you, which is cute. So, I mean, if you can't draw, you can always get a template online, I'm sure, but you can see that I've just kind of sketched it out roughly and then cut it out with some scissors. So you need some scissors. You need some fabric glue. You need a needle, and preferably like an embroidery needle with, you know, kind of fat with a blunt tip, not too sharp. Not that the other wouldn't work, but this is what I use, so I didn't stab myself over and over. And then, you know, the embroidery needle usually has a nice large eye size. And the threader, thank you, Hobby Lobby. Look at this little tin I bought at Hobby Lobby. I put the threader in there, which is a bee. See the little loopy doopy here? That's for threading your needle easily. And the pack of needles that I bought had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So got that at Hobby Lobby. And I just store my little needle threader in my little case here. All bees, very cute. What else would you need? Maybe a couple of little clips here, because you will be gluing the green part to the top. Full of other things that you're going to need, of course, if you want them stuffed. You don't have to, but I bought this big bag of polyfill because I'll use that for other stuff. So mine are stuffed. I've seen pictures on Pinterest where they are completely flat, but I like the stuffed look. I think that's kind of cute. And then you'll need some kind of tool to push the stuffing inside. And I'll show you all this when we go through the steps. I created a makeshift tube where we will put the stuffing in and, you know, slide this inside. You'll see. But this is just some acetate that I put, you know, roll it up tight and, you know, several layers around so it was nice and sturdy. You could use like a smoothie straw if you had one. You could use, I know there's a sewing tool that you can actually use. It's like a plastic tube like this. You just want to make sure when you create it that it is, you know, small enough to fit into your little opening here, like so. So again, I'll get to this part, how it's all done. Paul and I kind of engineered this morning when we were talking about how to get the stuffing in there a little easier. Okay, what else? Something like yarn to hang your string if that's what you want to do. And I think that's it. All right, so let's just start from the beginning here. I'm going to put my template right onto my felt. You could tack this down with a little bit of temporary adhesive if you want. I'll go ahead and do that. This isn't temporary, but I know that it'll peel up pretty easy from the felt. And I'm going to glue that. Let's get those out of the way. Glue that right down just to kind of hold it so I don't have to worry about it shifting around on me. And you can do 2 at once with felt because felt kind of sticks to itself. It's kind of nice. But I did find that I preferred to cut them out one by one. And you don't have to be crazy perfect about this because you're going to do that blanket stitch around and it kind of corrects. It's almost like inking edges when you're doing paper crafts. It kind of corrects any kind of flaws that you might have. The only thing I would suggest is when you do these, don't flip your template over. Keep it always in the same direction. So for me, it's the side where I can see the little pencil marks. Because when you go to line these up, you know, it's not perfect. It's hand-drawn. They may be askew if you flip it the other way. Then you get a nice long piece of embroidery floss here. And there's 6 strands when you buy embroidery floss, and I'm using 3. You can use whatever you like, but I think 3 is good. 6 would probably be a little too chunky and thick. So you just go in, if you've never done this before, you go in and split those apart till you have 3, and then you make sure you untwist as you pull them apart, because otherwise it gets a knot or tries to fight you a little bit. I won't do it here, but I usually put this tail down here in my teeth. I had to put it in my teeth. Okay, so I'm going to put that aside for another one. And how long was it? I would say you need to make it longer than you think. So this measures right now, gosh, my Glassboard Studio mat, I'm down here measuring that you can't see, but I'm laying it on my mat. The mat is like 24 inches, and I've got another good foot. So that gives me plenty of extra, because I did learn as I was going with those first couple that if you run out, that's not a happy little thing. You don't want to, you know, you want one continuous stitching, blanket stitching all the way around. Now, I didn't have any trouble getting it in that large eye, but if you did, that's where you use your little threader thing, my little bee thing. Okay, and then I tie a little knot, and I don't care about this too much because it's going to get covered up by the green here. Okay, so, you know, you have knots showing at the front and the end. That's okay. It's going to get covered up. Okay, simple blanket stitch. Couple things I learned about that as well, because mine got so much better as I went along, and I'll show you. I'll kind of compare. Like, here's probably one of the first ones I did. Pretty rough looking, and I actually ran out right there, you know. So I did learn eventually the better way to do this blanket stitch so it comes out pretty darn perfect. And there's all these little tools that you can buy, or you can make a mark on your finger to make perfectly spaced stitches. Honestly, you guys, I just eyeballed it. So here's how I would begin. You can pin this together if you want. I did not. Just make sure that they don't shift out of place. And I started at the bottom. Doesn't matter. Well, it does matter. You want to start at the bottom because you're going to cover this up. And I come in about 1/8 of an inch from the edge way down here at the bottom. Okay. And then I come kind of right back up in that, close to that same hole for this first one. And here I want to do my first loop. Now, here's something that I found out. To make those really neat blanket stitches, you don't want to come around through this loop. Just come from the front, put your needle through, and give it a soft pull. I don't pull it super tight. And then the subsequent ones will start to form that blanket stitch. So next one, I always come in from the back, and I'm, again, eyeballing. So I'm coming up from the first stitch about 1/8 of an inch, and I'm coming over 1/8 of an inch. Gently pull till you get your loop at the end. And right about there. Again, I'm not going to come around. I'm going to come through the front and give this a soft pull. And that's what you want. You want to see that little side stitch on the right there. Let's do another so you can see that again. Did I say earlier if you wanted to pin this, you could? If you're worried about it shifting, I saw it shift a little, so I just fixed it real quick. You don't want to go too fast when you're pulling your floss through here, because it can knot up pretty quickly. Okay, there's the loop. I'm coming in from the front and give it a soft little tug. Okay, So I'll do one more. See how it wants to bunch up? If you went really fast, and see, even then I went slow and I have this, oops, this little knot here. It can happen, you know, especially when your floss is super long. So just take your time, move slowly. If you get this little knot, you just gently try to find it and softly pull it apart so that you don't get a big knot there. Okay, I had to undo that knot softly. Okay, there's my loop coming in from the front. Okay, so that's how it's looking. I'm going to keep going all the way around with this one, doing the same thing. Periodically, especially if you see this start to happen with your thread where it's getting kind of wound up on itself, I will, and you can't see this, but I'm going to hold the ornament, or the light, I should say, straight up in the air and let the needle dangle, and it just kind of untwists. So I do that periodically when I start to see that happening. Okay, so that's looking very good. See? All right, so I'm going to abandon that one for now because that will take a while to finish. Actually, when you put on a television show or something or a movie, it goes really fast. But I'll go to this one that's already done, and I'll show you how I stuff it. I went to get some polyfill, and I wondered where this was. It said right on the packaging that the stuffing tool is included. It's just a stick. It's narrower down here. It's wider up here. That's for pushing your stuff through. So that's great. I wondered where that was. Anyway, I'm going to grab just a small amount of this to start with, like just enough to fit in your hand. Maybe not even that much, maybe a little less. Okay, and then my makeshift little tube here. I just didn't want to go to the craft store anymore. We were on the road, and I wanted to use, especially when I got home, it's like, I don't want to go buy more stuff to finish this. So I just, you know, I'm a crafter. I've got stuff here. So I am stuffing my little acetate rolled tube about halfway in there. And then let's try out their tool, see how that works. Now that I have it, then I just take the stuffing, and it's a little hard to get started because it's so slick, but see, I use this. I used a blending brush because the brush end seemed to grab a hold of the polyfill a little bit better than a slick tool like that stick. Now, once you get, you know, a good majority of this going in here, you don't have to use the brush side anymore. And really look around your craft room. I'm sure you have something that you can use. But at this point, you could switch to the other side of your blending brush, or you could try this tool, see how it works. Oh, that works pretty good. Just hang on to it when you pull it back out because it does want to pull the stuffing back out with you. Yeah, I don't feel like that's wide enough because my opening and my little tube are wider. So this is my jewel picker, and it's flat because I kept the cap on. I found that this worked really well because it has that flat end and it's not super slick like the blending brush. So I'm just going to stuff that in there. Like I said, I know there's tools for this. There's crafting tools just for this. All the sewers out there know. Okay, so I'm going to gently pull this out and make sure I went all the way through, and I feel like I did. Cool. Okay, so it's mostly full, but I'm going to add just a little bit more. And then we'll get that green band around here. So I'll just get that back in there again and then stuff a little bit more in there. By the way, when I was doing this in the car, I did most of these in the car. I did not have this little tube. I did have my jewel picker, I think. And I was stuffing this stuff in with, you know, by hand, no tube. So when Paul and I were having coffee this morning, I was telling him how I was going to do my video on this today. And I said, I would really love to come up with a better way of getting the stuffing in there. And as much as he doesn't like being called an engineer, he is. He's got an engineer brain. So he came up with the idea of having some kind of tube to stuff it in. And I thought, Genius, that worked. Now, at this point, you can put your little green stuff on. Now, I was thinking initially I would put it on this way, and then that way I'd have a little loopy-doopy to put my yarn. But I decided that wasn't going to work, and I wasn't going to like how that looked, because if I did it that way, you would see the sides. Like, you know, you'd see the sides. That's no good. So I wanted that to be nice and clean all the way around. So I just wrapped it around that way, and then this got glued shut. And then we will stitch the yarn with some green thread later. Okay, so what I did, got some Fabri-Tac. Any fabric glue that you like, you can use. Doesn't have to be Fabri-Tac. And I take a quick peek and I see, you know, what's going to be the front. Which side looks better? This one's pretty good, both sides, but I think I'll pick this side as the front. And the reason why I'm even thinking about that is because you will come around and overlap, and to me, that's going to be the back. So I would put some Fabri-Tac right in the middle. It doesn't take much. It really does hold very well. And then this was my front, yeah. So then I would just lay this right here. Have a little bit, like 1/8 of an inch left at the top. Don't go all the way flush. And then I'll take my little fabric glue and brush it all along here and across the top a little bit and over here. And this is where you want to grab some clips. 2 will do. And whoops. Fold one side over, fold the other side over, and I clip the top. And these are nice wide clips. Like I usually use these little guys, but you see how much wider they are? And I'm pretty sure somebody gave me these in Banff with a little goodie basket of stuff or bag of stuff. So that's all I do. I put one across the seam and then one across the top, and I'll let that sit for a minute. And that's what I've done to all of these here. They're done and ready to go. So I just have a few more right here that I will take a moment. I am going to use this green thread. It's just regular like quilting thread. I did test out this thicker, it's almost like a button thread. This is from Tim Holtz, the craft thread. It's a perfect match in color. However, it's very, very thick. So I don't think that's going to be great. And I did switch needles. Now I'm using a regular sewing needle that has pretty sharp tip and it's kind of long. And the reason being is because I have to go through all these layers and there is glue there. So I want to be sure that it's nice and sharp and can get through there easily. Now, if you've never used one of these threaders before and you have trouble like threading a needle, because this hole is very small compared to the embroidery one, you stick the little doomahickey. I'm using such great vocabulary today. You stick it through the eye. Can you see that? It's very hard to see. And then you put your thread through that thingamabobber, right? And then hold on to your needle and pull that through. Okay, and it works beautifully every time. Okay, so I don't know how much I need, and I don't want this to get all knotted up on me. So I'm just going to do about 12 inches because I am going to be doing one light at a time onto the yarn. So it doesn't have to be super long. We don't need a long continuous piece, and I don't want to fuss with it getting knotted up, like I said. Okay, now we're ready for the yarn. I've cut about a 4 foot long piece of the green yarn. That's more than what I need. You know, measure your space, and it depends on the number of little lights you have here. But I went with 4 feet for right now, and I can always trim it later. And so what I've discovered was that I had these cute little beads, some wooden beads. And I think I want to put those in between the lights. You know, you don't see that on a light string, but we don't care. I just want to make this look a little more filled out and festive. So I'm going to add these wooden beads, and they're just from Hobby Lobby. And they're the perfect size hole to get onto the yarn. Now the yarn, of course, will want to fray. So what I've done on both ends, because I am going to be threading these beads on here as I go, is I took a little fray check. You can do this with glue, I think, certain kinds of glue. This makes it like stiff and hard once it's dry, and now it's like, a shoelace where you can easily, feed it through without it fraying on you. So I'm going to do a white bead and 3 red ones in between each light. I think that's going to look cute. And I've already stitched the first little light, this blue one here, and I'm working from the middle out. So I've got my colors all in a row here across the table, how I want them to go on. So I know that this one will be next over here. So let's do that together. And I'm going to stick a magnet over here because my Glassboard Studio is magnetic. That's wonderful. I'm going to put one over here. I don't know if that one will get in my way or not. We'll see. And I've got my thread here. And yeah, so I'm going to have to move that one. So I'm going to pick this up, start from this right edge. Let's zoom in a little bit more. Okay, and start from this back edge. A little bit harder because I'm showing you on the camera. I would hold this in a different way probably if I was just doing it alone. But I came in from the back. Now each time that I make a stitch, I'm coming in from the back as well. I'm just moving over a little bit and I'm going to pull that nice and tight and move my way down. I can't even see this thread once I get going here. I do want to make sure that that lays up there on the top. And I'm not catching the loop. I'm not doing a blanket stitch. No need. So I'm just going along here. And this is why I use the sharp needle, because I am going through the Fabri-Tac. And it's a little bit stiff once it gets dry. So that's why you want a nice pointy sharp needle. Okay, I'm going to go along and do the rest of this and tie this off in a knot when I get to the left edge over here, put on some more beads, and then just keep on going. Well, this is the best way to show you all of it finished. It turned out really nice. Everything worked out with the beads, and at the very end, both ends, I added just a single white bead and then the red bead, and I connected those two with glue so that they stuck together and didn't just slide off. And I have the perfect spot for this to hang in my house, and I'll take a picture of that at the end here. But I thank you so much for joining me. I hope you like this little fun kind of retro project, and I will see you next week in the next crafty video.